Dr. Mina, you've been sort of the leading voice on rapid testing. You've read op-eds. You and I have gone back and forth on Twitter a number of times. What do we make of that Swiss study? It shows that they're less effective at identifying Omicron, but does that make them useless?
Yeah, so actually the study didn't actually show that. It's far too complicated for me to go into the actual science behind it. But what it actually, I think, is demonstrating is that Omicron is replicating much more efficiently. But everything we see when you actually get it to sort of per virus, how well do these rapid tests detect Omicron? It's actually, they're across the board detecting Omicron just as well as they were detecting Delta in the previous versions. It's actually an issue with how those studies are performed makes it appear that way.
Okay,
and I'll tweet about it.
Let's go back to that, because I got 10 scientists who would disagree with you on that. I've talked to them, and we've gone back and forth on Twitter, and it seems that there is you need to take more rapid tests to get what you might view, take 3 in 2 days or something like this, rather than 1 and relying on it. But you disagree with that take.
So no, the thing is the tests are identifying the virus just the same. What's happening is people are spreading the virus quicker before the virus migrates well into the nose. And so we're actually seeing around a day of infectivity before people start getting detected on these tests, whether it's PCR or antigen. Unfortunately, it's one of the reasons Omicron is so transmissible, is that people are becoming infectious very soon after they're first exposed. They're becoming symptomatic, infectious.
Okay.
And then around a day later, the tests are starting to pick you up, which is why some people are finding that actually a throat swab is better able to detect in that first day, which can also be on a rapid test, but because the virus starts in the throat and then works its way up into the nose.
Okay, that's interesting, because we obviously know the demand, Dr. Mina, and driving here today, I passed 2 testing centers where there was lines of hundreds of people. What has been our problem? And you have highlighted this. The FDA, with the stroke of a freaking pen, could change the regulatory structure from a, quote, medical device, which makes them hard and expensive to produce, to basically like Germany, where I think there's 70 companies making tests, not just a couple. What in the world are the regulatory agencies doing? Why is it so hard to get a test?
Yeah, the regulatory agency in the United States still does not formally recognize that there is such thing as a test that is primarily used for public health. Every test has to go through a medical diagnostic evaluation. And I've been suggesting that we change it, and we don't lower the bar, but we change the bar to something that is much more commensurate with a public health need. Tests need to be fast, accessible. They need to identify you when you are infectious and not 3 weeks later. It doesn't mean lowering the bar for public health testing. It means creating a new pathway at the FDA. One thing that could afford, for example, is the ability for America and the FDA to look at Europe and say, what are the best tests that have been used millions and millions of times in Europe, and automatically grant those emergency use in the United States because our trusted countries have used them very successfully. Overnight, that could increase capacity, hundreds of millions of tests in the United States, but we haven't actually pivoted towards public health evaluations of these tests at our regulatory agencies, still 2 years in.
It's Dr. Mina, it's hard to believe. I mean, World War II, Ford started making fighter planes instead of cars. This is wartime. That's what I don't get. And we're acting like, oh, well, we don't even have a full-time FDA commissioner.
You're absolutely right. This has been a disaster, I think, from an FDA perspective. And it was both administrations failed to recognize this need. And I said a lot, if we were being bombed, or if four commercial airlines were getting shot down in our country every single day, we wouldn't wait for some regulatory agency to say we need to act. We would act swiftly. Even if we didn't have every cinch of information, we would do what we needed to do. And we're just not living up to that here in this pandemic.